Hi, Susan.
Hello.
So we're having a conversation. I went into the amazing Breaking Up with Sugar Facebook group and I said, who's struggling and wants to come talk about it on the podcast? I literally thought there would be 0 people. There was a lot of people. And I want to thank you up front for just coming in with such bravery and integrity.
You're welcome. It's a struggle. And I clicked on the link and then thought, oh no, what have I done? But the timing of it all has been perfect.
I feel that way a lot of times in life. And usually when I feel that way, something really great comes from it. So let's see what we can. So tell me about the struggle and like where you are with everything.
So the struggle, I lost the weight. I broke up with sugar and flour. I lost it all. I got down to the smallest body I've ever been in and maintained it for 3 years, a little more than 3 years, actually.
So it wasn't, you didn't break up with sugar, flour and release that weight knowing me.
No,
this is a while ago.
This started in 2017.
Okay. Then we're at 2022 now, right?
So I hit maintenance and went through the body dysmorphia and adjusted to all of that.
So for those people listening, because I think sometimes your definition of body dysmorphia and my definition of body dysmorphia and the listener's definition of body dysmorphia, those clinical words really throw me off sometimes. Sure. So what does it mean to you? So you released a bunch of weight and then what happened with your body?
I lost 140 pounds and couldn't recognize that I was small. I still felt large. I would go out to the store to shop and I had to look in the mirror and cover my face because seeing myself in the mirror in this body it didn't make sense. I would, in moving around, I would see my arm and think, that's not my arm. That's too thin. And it took a while. It took probably 6 months or so. And I learned to live in a quote unquote normal size body. I had never been, even as a child, an average size person. So it was really a huge adjustment for me. I went through I can fit in airplane seats and I can ride on carnival rides and,
I really know. Yeah. Start crying when you put on a bathing suit. Sure.
Oh, absolutely. It just, I can wear regular necklaces and my shoes are smaller. Right. I went through all of those
normal underwear. I'm with you. Absolutely.
So it was this great period. And I was in, a diet group at the time and received all the accolades, the crowning and the speaking tour. And I was in a magazine and, did the whole thing. And it was great. And then my mom died. And I did okay for a couple of months. And then, life threw a couple littler things at me, a couple, not so little things too. And one day, that person that still lives in my head said, go through the Dairy Queen drive up. You deserve it. It's almost your birthday.
Right.
Your mom's not here and you deserve it.
Right.
So I did. And the next morning I thought, well, that was a one-of. And that was in August. And here I am in January, 70 pounds heavier. I have struggled. I have got up every day and ate my regular sugar-free, flour-free breakfast. Sometimes I'd make it through lunch. That was about the time I discovered you. And of course, read the book and thought, me, I could have written this. Started listening to the podcast. And what really stuck with me is taking the vow. Don't give up no matter what.
On yourself.
Don't give up on myself.
That's right. The vow you make to yourself.
And of course, the addiction didn't get smaller while it was away. While I wasn't feeding it sugar and flour, it showed up with a vengeance, binging like I've never binged before. So, made it through the holidays and I'm finally about 8 days sugar and flour free, which is the longest string of days that I've had since that
Can we discuss one thing really quickly? Because I do love I'm always open for a miracle, always part of my charm. It's so interesting that you have 8 days and that we're talking today. Because that makes me really hopeful. And also we were supposed to talk like 3 weeks ago when you maybe had none and I had to reschedule. And I'm so excited that we're talking on a day where you have a little bit of traction.
And some clarity. Because when the poison is in my brain, I can't think. I mean, it literally, the sugar and the flour make me, that's all I can think of. I gave up relationships. I gave up everything for it.
I'm so glad we're together today, Susan. I really am. I feel really grateful. I have a bunch of questions. Can I ask them?
Ask away. Open book.
Well, because I think that, I do love data, and I do love the Dairy Queen isn't really, the Dairy Queen is an event. It's an event that happened. There's a lot that happened in between. And I'm just so interested about, I'm actually interested about these last, what are we saying, 7 or 8 months where you've had a really hard time getting traction. So have you gotten, okay, let me start with the Dairy Queen. So in the, I guess the diet program that you did before, I always say the difference between a diet and a relationship is a shift in what you choose to believe. And it's, I mean, did you do any emotional work? Did you do the connection stuff? Like, what do you think went wrong? You did. That's amazing.
I did the checking in every day. When the pandemic started, I battle anxiety and depression. I got a therapist.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing the therapist work. I was doing the daily check-ins. I was doing the Facebook groups, and the diet group I belonged to was a small local support group, and it was wonderful.
Right.
But I realized, especially when I started to gain the weight back, that it was the diet drama and trauma.
Tell me more. What do you mean?
I was, first of all, with every size I went up, there was shame. There was shame. There was embarrassment.
And what's
still
your
the
working?
Shame.
Well, let's try to de-shame you a little bit, because this is so normal. And I think this is the piece, like we won't look at what happened because the shame is so powerful, telling us that, we're the problem, we're bad. And, but what is your definite, like, what does the shame mean to you? Can you unpack it for us a little bit?
Oh, I can't believe you had it. This is the diet trauma and drama. I can't believe you had it all and you gave it away. You were at that weight and you had it and you just couldn't put the food down. You screwed up again. You're never going to get it back. Here we go again. And what if you see these people that you gave talks to and said, all you need to do is follow the freaking program?
Don't you have so much compassion for? I've had a lot of lapses in my day, and every time I have a lapse, it just makes me so much more deeply compassionate to, that's really where it's a relationship, and where these diet programs are like, because sometimes you lose your way for a while, and the hardest part is coming back, and we come back I'm so glad you're back at 70 pounds up and not 170 pounds up, and that's just, if I could ever make note to anybody, you are right to say that sacred vow is everything. Because when we make this commitment to never, ever, ever give up. So it sounds like you did have the supports. I mean, 2 years into this pandemic, boy, do we not give enough credit to this pandemic, so I just want to also note that huge life stressors here, including one that's completely unprecedented, just in the gentleness to yourself.
And I'm in the medical field. I work from home, but I'm in the medical field, and I work daily with clinicians who are out taking care of COVID patients in the home. So that, just the stress of that and the personal relationships and losing my mom, who was my first Weight Watchers leader at age 8 or 9. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there too, but
say the least. That's its own podcast.
Yes, it is. So, well, that's why I have my therapist on speed dial. So, but a lot of things happened, and I lost sight of the fact that a lot of things happened, and that if this were anyone else, I would have said, it's going to be okay. We're just going to start over. let's just walk this way. And I would love them through it, but not myself.
Yeah.
I just shamed myself. And with the shame, it's like there was a part of me that just said, you're hurting. And I'm just going to flood you with Oreo cookies and ice cream because that's the only thing that's going to make you feel better. So, okay, now I know what happened. But it's that trying to get the
I want to understand what's happening that's breaking your momentum. So it sounds like, I mean, I have to say, you're real smart about all of this, which I might say is what gets in your way. It's an interesting thing about, and I say this to the listener too, it's an interesting thing about having as much knowledge, it sounds like psychologically, and as it pertains to addiction. And, because I think shame will use that against us. I think shame will use our intelligence against us. And so I don't know. I just want you to take a deep breath. Like, we're just human. Like, I don't know. I was like an active eating disordered addictions therapist. It's just, we're exactly where we need to be until we're somewhere else. And I would just be really gentle with that. Because I think that's where your shame decides to really capitalize on you, is just given as much as you know, and given how all that sort of that prideful, the prideful celebration, which, in my experience, and I really relate to what you're talking about with feeling like uncomfortable in that body. I felt sort of insecure and uncomfortable in that new body. I mean, for years, I still don't see my body in the way that it is. I love my body to the extent that I know what it looks like. But I had someone say that, like, when you get into this different body, it's a little bit sort of that dysmorphia is a little bit like psychosis in a way, like you're sort of broken from reality, but you also know that you're broken from reality. And that's like a lot to hold, as is the part where you're at this sort of ideal weight, which your mother still dies when you're at an ideal weight, and there's still a pandemic when you're at an ideal weight, and you still have, some of the other ancillary issues that you're talking about, and people still say no to you and you're still rejected. And so when you put that kind of importance on an ideal weight and you get there, and it isn't like a big lottery and rainbows and unicorns, it's also its own stuff. And I think that's why I say so often that our why, our real reason that we're doing this can't actually be weight related. Like, that's a perfect story of why it can't be weight related. That's
my whole life. Every morning I would wake up, my entire life, and absolutely the first of the year, we don't even need to talk about that. If I can just lose the weight, I'll be happy.
I know.
And you know what? I lost the weight and I felt good, but then I didn't.
And then you didn't know what to do.
And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I've been unpacking that over this last period of time. And I think and my therapist calls me on this all the time, I can talk a good game.
Yeah, no, you're a really good litigator, and it's like,
sometimes I don't always believe it.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish sometimes I wish when we were talking, it's like that litigator, that sort of part of us, that edge, that sort of shape that's like quietly shaming ourselves because we know so much. It's like, it's in a way, it's its own self-shaming when you're like, well, I know this and I know this and I know this. It really is secretly shaming ourselves. Right. And it doesn't, you're wonderful. It just, there are moments in which that particular problem doesn't allow for us to have the most important skill when we're trying to learn and when we're trying to heal, which is open-mindedness, because we know so much in our head. And this is the root of diet drama and trauma, right? Especially for those of us like you and me, like I'm on a diet since I'm 7, like I've learned a lot, and I end up using it against myself. And then, we're sitting sort of alone with the ice cream in the life the size of a postage stamp. And so I'm very curious, because I actually think the greatest amount of data lies in these few days that you're able to whittle together, and then what happens so that it hasn't been it sounds like you've been trying to get back to where you used to be, and you're not able to have it for a sustained amount of time, except for these 8 days, which we're so excited about. And I hope that we have 9 tomorrow, and I'm here for it. And obviously going to talk to you about connection, like I talk to every single person about connection. But what happens?
I let go of the goal.
I need to unpack that. I need that little teeny micro steps, if you don't mind.
I realized that I was hating myself so much that I couldn't let go of the food.
Like, can we get really specific? Your litigator's back. You see how like beautifully you put together things. I actually want to get like super micro about this. So can we just go to like, so we're filming this in January. So let's do a November. Let's do a November episode. You ready?
Okay.
So talk me through a November episode where you had 3 or 4 days, and then tell me what happened on that 3rd or 4th or 5th day.
And then I would get sad or upset.
Okay. So let me slow it down.
The guilt or not guilt, the shame, the depression about my mom.
Uncomfortable feeling. It sounds like you don't do well with sadness.
No, okay. I don't do well with feelings. I'm learning.
Good. Well, you know, that's right. I love that. The languaging I love to use is not that you used this, but not that I'm scared of feelings, but I'm unfamiliar with feelings.
Yes, absolutely. I'm unfamiliar with letting them come and dissipate. And I can do it better.
That's amazing.
But when the grief comes, it's just so much. And before I would reach out to someone, or before I would talk to someone, I would think, sugar's the only way I can handle this.
Here's my question. Like, why do we have to sit through our grief? Like, this is the big problem I think people have with feelings. And like, by the way, why do we have to call somebody when we're feeling grief? Because if those are my only options, I too am going to go to the food. No, like, I'm not even kidding.
True.
If I'm sitting there and I'm telling you, like, I have amazing, I mean, I'm locked and loaded when it comes to a power circle, but we have to create some kind of system where it's like, those cannot be the only 2 things that I can do. And I think there's this real misconception about feelings that we need to like, almost like sit there and like, it's like a tsunami's coming in and we have to be like naked, standing there, being able to take the entire tsunami in. And that's how you have a feeling. Or you have to be like, breaking your heart open and like calling somebody and having like these really vulnerable, authentic feelings with them, like on the phone. Those sound terrible. If I'm really,
they are terrible.
If I'm grieving my mother, you know, and sugar's on the table, I think that would be a part of, you know, what I'm thinking about maybe what was going wrong. So it sounds, so what you're saying to me is, you know, in November, I have this kind of sadness. Maybe it was about my mom. Maybe it was about the state of the world. Maybe it's about something. And then the second thing that it sounds like happens is that you started to have shame around that sadness. So Tara Brach calls that double wounding, right? That we're having one feeling and then we have a feeling about that feeling. So you're having shame that you're feeling sad. And if you had like an interpretation, if that shame was sitting here, what does it say to you?
You should know better.
Oh my goodness.
It's been how long, and you should be able to handle this. I by trade am a hospice and palliative care trained nurse.
Yeah. So
also
a human being.
I know, because
being a human being so tricky, isn't he? So what?
I would tell people all the
therapist.
time.
Yeah, I'm a renowned therapist, and sometimes I just don't want to call anyone, and sometimes I just don't want to have a feeling. I mean, there's this embracing of being human. I mean, it's such a great part, and I don't know if this is helpful, but in my experience, you know, really embracing those imperfections that I have, like where sometimes I just don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to eat a bag of microwave popcorn, like leave me alone. Or that helps me so profoundly in having compassion for others. Like, we're so imperfect. Who taught you that you had to be perfect? Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that you're only valuable if you're perfect? Where, like,
Mom. Yeah, because we don't. Yeah, because we don't, and we don't talk about being sad. You don't cry. You just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and move on.
You know, dialectic. I'm a dialectical behavioral therapist, and a dialectic is when we have 2 opposing ideas that, you know, have a hard time finding synthesis. And it sounds like, you know, on one hand, you know, you were taught these, you know, part of your blueprint is, you know, we don't have uncomfortable feelings. We don't show how we're feeling. What's the belief system? Like, what if you do show what if you show a negative feeling, that people are going to leave, or what's the fear of it?
We just don't do that.
There's
We
no,
just don't do that
what's
in
the
this
underlying
family.
fear? But what if you did? What if you showed your mom that you were
Because
sad?
people would know.
Okay. So it's secrecy.
Oh, absolutely. You know,
Okay, so
alcoholic father.
Well, there we have it.
Yeah.
Welcome
Yeah.
home. Yeah. So, okay. And so we've all like the secrecy, keep it together, make it look good on one hand. And what the other part that's really interesting and I identify with across the board is, you know, you're really trained to help people have their feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're really missing something in the middle there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're really missing
Mm-hmm.
something. And it's interesting because like, it sounds like it's so much about fear. You know, it's about fear of what people knowing that you're imperfect.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
Absolutely.
like perfect people, Susan. Do you? They really scare me. They do. They throw me off my game. I'm like, I can't participate in this because if I mess up, then you're too perfect. And like, I don't really know. DBT, we call it radical genuineness, and it's a validation skill. And it's sort of the idea of knowing that, you know, everybody's sort of the same in every environment. And it's like it's an idea of really feeling validated in someone's truth. Do you ever feel that way around people when they're just like acting really perfect, or do you feel safe around them?
Oh, no, I don't feel safe because they might find out my secrets, you know, and then, you know, they'll find out what I'm really like, and then they won't like me. Yeah. There's a lot here to unpack, Molly.
No. I mean, if you believe so, I don't think that, so it's so funny. I don't think that that's true at all. And I guess what I was really thinking about was, you're pretty attached to these beliefs about perfectionism. Like it feels really entrenched to me. It feels like, and I guess I just wonder if you're willing to loosen your grip on them. Cause I actually think it's hard to get well in the way that you want to, you know, like sort of when people say like, well, you know, that's just how I am. That's a big it makes me really nervous inside. Cause I really want you to have freedom. And I feel like when we're that entrenched, like, well, this is, you know, Marsha Linehan, who created dialectical behavioral therapy, you know, she always says, our problems are not of our making, but they're ours to solve. And, you know, part of the beauty of being older, like, you know, and not being parented anymore, whether alive or dead, is that we don't have to subscribe to the belief systems that we were handed.
No.
It's interesting because you know that this perfectionistic belief system isn't serving you.
Yes.
So is it something you might want to loosen up from?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. And I think that's where the turn came this time, when I let go of, I just have to get back to being that size.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go back there. Because if I go back there where I was, I'm just going to be here again, and it's going to be a big loop. So I need to move forward no matter what happens with the weight.
Right.
I have to move through this, and I have to figure out why I'm hanging on to these things.
Well, I don't actually think that's true. I think why is like analysis paralysis a lot of the time. I actually, I don't know. Why is a long-term thing. So I have a couple of ideas if you're open to them.
I'm open.
I wonder what it might be like to loosen up to the idea that even though you have 8 days and you may get 12 days and you may get 15 days off of sugar and flour, if you might lean into the idea that you might make a mistake again. What do you think about that? Because I think one of the things that's hampering your ability to really move forward is how fine the tightrope that you're walking on is, and all the beliefs that are surrounding what happens. Like just even the story that I hear you telling, well, it's like, because like, it's so, I mean, it's really dramatic. Like I see it like a movie, but that's not usually a good thing, right? Because we just want it to be a part of the thing. And I think when I wrote the Sacred Vow, and remember, like the Sacred Vow is the second chapter of the book. It's before we even talk about food or addiction or anything. It's really this idea, because, you know, we have two relationships that we have to have in this world, and one is with food and one is with ourselves. And I wonder what it might feel like for you if you loved yourself, even though you might mess it up again.
Yeah. That's the key.
Because if you could make that commitment to stick with yourself, no matter what. It's a weird thing. It's a weird little magic trick. Then that Dairy Queen could have just been a Dairy Queen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have so much loaded. And I want to say it's like, this is a good thing that you're in therapy because it's loaded, and it's loaded in a way that we can see. But I'm going to tell you, if it's rooted in your blueprint, there's extra, there's extra. It's like, there's extra. There's a generator full of it. It's rooted in ways you can't see. It's a terrible thing I'm going to tell you, but self-love and self-forgiveness is actually the key to the game here for you.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And that's not the first time that I'm hearing that. I hear it from my therapist. And every time I hear it, I go, yeah, you're right. Wow.
You're better than me. When I told me that, I said, how long does that take to heal? Because I only have a week in your treatment facility. They're like, it's a lifetime. And I just lost my mind on this guy. Poor Randy. I just lost my mind. I was like, I came to your treatment center for a week. How long is it for self-love and forgiveness, Randy? And he just like completely ignored me. God bless him.
I get that. When she said it this past Saturday again, I thought, oh, we're back here again.
Yeah. But
because
Mama,
that's
here's
it.
The thing. I know, but here's the thing I think too. So the first thing I think is, and I mean, it's a practice. It's like forgiveness and acceptance are practices. I think personally, it's a great, Jack Kornfield talks about this too. He's a Buddhist psychologist, it's something we're striving for, it's like, I hate to tell you this, but we don't do forgiveness and acceptance perfectly. We actually do it incredibly imperfectly. And, gosh, I wonder what it might be like if it was more than like your therapist that really, really knew the insides of you, not the story you're telling. So there's, in vulnerability, and believe you me, I did not learn this in graduate school. When it comes to being vulnerable and smart, it's like smart will override vulnerable because it's safer. And you have such a great way of telling the story. You know what I mean? And you have so much knowledge. And even when I'm here, you're like, yep, that's exactly what I need to do. Right. Like, and I wonder, and what that means to me is that I'm loving you and it's not getting all the way in. Does that resonate?
It does. And I feel it.
Good.
I feel it. And I look back at when I lost the weight the first time, and it was every single day perfection, not one step off the plan.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where if I was emotional or upset when Mom started to get, she would start to have bad days, I would binge on oranges. And all of my support people would say, oh my gosh, will you stop? It's oranges.
Wow.
But I knew in my head it wasn't right. And it didn't matter if it was oranges or if it was anything.
I guess I also just wonder, just given like your incredible ability to, be vulnerable, but not at the same time, like, and this is utter curiosity. Like, did you say, I'm so sad, or I'm so scared? Or did you just say, I'm binging on oranges?
I said, I'm binging on oranges.
Oh, I'm so glad I found it. I'm so glad I found the hole. I didn't think I was going to find the hole, Susan. You see the hole? See what we missed?
Yeah.
Oranges are a symptom.
Yes.
Cravings and binging are sirens, and not sirens of like, like the, like you're going to gain your weight back, like symptoms. It's like, what do I need in this moment? And I can't imagine how invalidating that must be. And I'm like you, and Tara Brach talks about this too. Tara Brach, listen to this one. Tara Brach talks about how those of us who have a hard time with vulnerability, and I've had to work on it my whole life, we build these armors, incredible armors, and yours is filled with intelligence and nursing data. Your armor is like, you're like the bionic woman over there. And here's the problem with the armor, my love. It's so good that you are knocking on it and screaming for help and connection and support, and no one can hear you.
That hits.
I get it. It's like, so we don't want to say I'm binging on oranges, because then everybody's going to say, oh, it's an orange, Susan. And then, and then you're further invalidated.
Yeah.
Right. And that was like such a scream for help.
Yeah.
And if you guys like, I'm so scared, I'm so sad right now, guys, that would have been like, oh, honey, tell me more.
Yeah.
Food's a symptom. It's just telling us something. Yeah. And that's what I think here, which is, can we get you just 1, 2, 3 unprofessional people where you can start to practice? I mean, first of all, it's not if you're going to screw this thing up, you're going to screw this thing up. And I wonder if we can have, it's so funny. I'm so ambivalent about day counting. I really am. Like, I think it's beautiful that you have 8 days. And like, there's a part of me that really just wants to say, like, can we just get rid of that? But also, can you keep like a silent count? So maybe at like 70 days, we can take a look. That's what happened for me too. I was just like, day one. This woman's like, you're addicted to starting over. And I don't think that's where you are by any means, but I think I worry with your perfectionism that like, as badly as you want to be practicing imperfection, like day 10 of you not doing what you think you should be doing, maybe not, is like, maybe we can just say, really the sacred vow and really some of the ideas that we talk about in our community, which is, can you just wake up every day and just say, hey, today I commit to do my best, just really like one day at a time. And then, maybe in a couple months, you just go count a calendar. Like, that's the first thing I want to say, so that you just have a little bit more room for forgiveness. Like, when we're day counting in the way that you are with all this perfectionism, it doesn't open up a lot of space for you to heal. And there's a big healing that needs to happen here. Are we together on that one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a countdown from the first day I decided I wanted to get healthy in 2017. And I almost got rid of it when I gained the weight back. And I thought, I'm not going to get rid of it because it's been like 1,500 days, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm still on the path. I haven't left the path.
You haven't left the path. And like, yeah, I mean, listen, whatever it means to you, I think time doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people who haven't had a morsel of sugar and they weigh all their meals, and I want nothing that they have, and then I've met beautiful people like you who are 8 days on the path where I'm like, wow, I really am connecting. It's just, time means nothing, It means a lot and it means nothing. Another dialectic, right? So I wonder if this idea of you just like sort of expanding the wagon here, like the woman says to me, I just keep on falling off the wagon. I just keep on falling off the wagon. And I was like, then your wagon's too small. We need to give you, it's true. We kind of make a bigger wagon.
That's a visual that I can hang on to.
But that's a visual that you're living in your wagon. That's why I use the word tightrope pretty clearly when I was talking about how this is for you. And I love this idea that you've let go of the weight, because when you focus on the weight, you lose the relationship. And when you focus on the relationship, then the weight is an outcome of that, right? Of a healthy relationship. I love that.
Yeah.
And then, my third one's always going to be the same. I'm just so boring in my recos, but I think true what Brene Brown says about shame, right? That shame needs empathy and truth telling. You and I are like, I am so good at telling the truth via a beautiful PowerPoint. You know what I mean? Like, it looks like the truth. It's really pretty graphics, but it's not, if it's that pretty, it's not my truth. Right. And so I use the word dirty truth with you. Are there any people that you may be willing to slowly get to know that can be, people you share your dirtiest truth with? Because it's like, you may overeat oranges again. And I never want you telling someone that you overate oranges. I want you to have people in your life who either say, well, what was really happening? What did you need? Or people you feel like you could say, like, I do not know what happened, but that got really gnarly last night and I need to tell you about it. Does that frighten you?
That hits so deeply. No, it doesn't frighten me. I can feel it in my body.
Oh, good.
And the armor thing rings so true. Yeah. I mean, I'm trained to be that way and I've been brought up that way. And even for your words to get through to the inside, that you pierced it.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I mean, I think the beauty of being alive, Susan, is that we can rewrite the story.
Yes.
We can rewrite the idea of it's bad to have feelings. And listen, it doesn't get rewritten all at once. Please, nobody listening to this be like, I rewrote it and it didn't stick. Like, it's not going to stick. I talk about this over and over. Your perfectionism and you having that armor on. I mean, those are well-worn snow grooves. That is just like we walk down the hill, we just go down that snow groove. But part of rebuilding a new snow groove is seeking out connection. You have to override the old snow groove. It's in this way, it would be like, have I had intimacy with somebody in my power circle? So that might just be like a feelings check, a gratitude list. Have I been nurturing to myself today? Whatever it is, we have to start to practice some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Creativity, by the way, is another way to do it. Doing things that are outside of our comfort zone. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I'm so, I want to say this to you, and I think you know this, but you're going to get this and you want this very badly because nobody fights for this the way you're fighting for it. I think there are a few, it's like we're at 130 degrees and we need to move you to 180 degrees, but we're not at 0 degrees, and a lot of it is like the really hard stuff, right? Like intimacy, openness.
Yes.
Imperfection.
Yes. And for so long over the last few months, I thought I was back to 0. And I'm realizing I can't go back, first of all, to who I was all that time ago.
Yeah. Well, you tell a story about when you started really binging again that, speaks to the story of addiction, where you said the binges were worse and they were worse and they were worse. And we know that about addiction, right? Yes. It's progressive. It gets worse over time. But I've been doing this a long time. And I think we underestimate the recovery muscle. I think we underestimate the healing muscle. I think it's pretty progressive too. Like, I think there's serious muscle memory in there combined with your desire. I think you're in way better shape than you think that you are. And I will hold that truth until you want to take it from me. Are you going to connect with people in the Facebook group?
I am. I've gone in sporadically.
Yeah.
And
God, isn't that so work. Hard? That I know it doesn't. Wouldn't it be amazing if sporadic connection really worked?
And it doesn't. It's whether you want to or not. It has to be part. And I've gone back to Atomic Habits. I love James Clear with all my heart.
But Atomic Habits are not about intimacy. Sorry to tell you.
No, they're not. But they're a way to make sure that I check the boxes I need to check.
But we're going to put intimacy on your Atomic Habits list. Right. Because I think for you, there's I think it's called Eat the Frog, but I want you to do the hardest thing first.
I've read that book.
That's a good movie. Susan, it doesn't shock me that you've read all the books, and at the end of the day, we're going to have to open the heart and not open the brain.
Yes. There's no app for that.
There's no app for that. Oh my God. I know. But I think what you make I think when I've seen, and I've seen it in my own relationships, the people who are in and out, probably it's hard to get connected. We love ourselves enough to be consistent. And I love that idea of you attending to these relationships more consistently. And I'm in there, so then I get to see you more too.
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, I got to tell you, this resonated deeply with me. So I'm hoping it really resonates with lots of people in our community. And it's like, gosh, are you the keeper of she will never give up? She will never give up. I'm so happy about that. I'm so happy you were brave enough to come chat with me. Thank you. It's a privilege to get to talk to you today, Susan.
Thank you so much. And thank you for just the love that you pour on all of us. It's just oozing from every pore.
It's easy. I think everybody's just so brave and incredible to be, to be doing this thing, creating these new relationships. So love you.
Love you. And thank you.
My pleasure.